sound check here. I'm presuming the sound will be working fine. Yeah, I think I might need to turn my mic up a little bit though. Let me see what my volume is here. First of all, no, yeah, my volume here is pretty good. So, Batman. No, I don't want that. I want audio properties. Where are you, you wee bastard? There. Is that right? Advanced audio properties. Okay, so. Microphone, the volume 100%. So let me check my winders. I don't want to grow up, as my cousin Jan says, because I'm a professional. Yeah, my mic volume is down like 31. I don't know why. So let's see if that's any better. Freeze? I hate my computer. Oh. Freeze? Okay. We got sound. That's what we got. All right. So for anybody who's popped in or who's gonna pop in later or whatever, welcome, welcome. Let me get my chat screen over here. I need like 2 more monitors to be able to keep up with everything here. All right. Currently, this is on the Existential Cafe and Gaming Lounge, and I will be doing games on that. But this particular show, the Irish Mouthpiece, is on here temporarily. Next week, it's going to be on its own YouTube channel. I'll have a separate channel for that. And coffee break. Nope, nope, nope. Where's my straw? There we go. Except I got to put it way out of the way because, like I told one of my friends, if it's here on the edge of the table and the straw's sticking up, I'll go to reach for something and knock that thing over. And aside from the fact that wasting coffee is against my religion, it spills it over my floor. Fortunately, not on my keyboard the last time, which was like 3 days ago. So I do it every once in a while to remind myself not to do it, and I still do it anyway. So got to keep that way away from me. I am the Irish Mouthpiece, the Angry Wrench, whatever. Going forward from here, it's going to be the Irish Mouthpiece. If you follow this channel at all, or if you've seen any of my shows at all, you know that I'm mouthy. This show is not... There's profanity in it, okay? So if that's not your thing, you know, that's fine. You know, you can go on and find content elsewhere. It's not every other word, but the occasional fuck or shit or damn or motherfucker or whatever will pop out, you know, just so you know. Especially when I get a little bit heated about some topics, which I do on occasion, like every time I do a show. Excuse me. The format I think going forward is going to be where I'm going to take one topic and do a little bit on it, another topic and do a little bit deeper delve, and then the last topic and do some on it. So, like, it'd be like 1/5, 3/5, or 1/6, 3/6, 2/6, or whatever, something like that. Anyway, me and math don't get along too well, and it's really weird because I used to when I was in ITT Tech, which we'll get into later. I took college. They called it college level math 1 and college level math 2, which was we went up to the level of, I believe it's just like a little bit higher algebra. It's not calculus or anything. We went up to where I was doing 6-box matrices and stuff, and I can do that in my head. I can't tell you how, but I can do that in my head. Okay, it is. I can look at it and give you the answer like I did with the instructor, because we did a video chat just like this. Okay, Zoom wasn't big then, let me tell you. And so she asked me, like the second test I think it was, because I was getting. Now, granted, I studied my ass off, and I had an engineer friend. She's been an engineer for a long time. She helped me, and because she used to tutor people in college and whatever too. And I got a 97% because I didn't do letter grades out of the class. So I was pretty proud of that. Wasn't perfect, but I've long since passed the point where I give a shit about perfect for the most part, except for cheesecake. So I am fair to middling at math. Okay, I can do those 6-box matrices in my head, but I literally have to count time zones on my fingers. Okay, so it is what it is. I am, like I said, the Irish mouthpiece. I am a mouthy bitch, and I take no necessarily no umbrage at anybody who calls me that. I don't care. Because either you're calling me that because it's accurate, because you're pissed off at me, or you're calling that because you're a friend of mine, and it's a term of endearment between us. So either way, doesn't bother me a bit. This show covers all sorts of topics, politics, social issues, economic issues, ecology. I may occasionally go off on a riff on a show about how much I love dinosaurs, whatever. But generally, it's mostly current topics. Excuse me. That are kind of I don't want to say hot button. They may not necessarily be hot button to everybody, but today's topics are going to be a education issue, and then a legal and education and other issue. So for the two big ones. So let's just get this started. So I'm going to switch screens here. Dun, 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 dun. Move that out of my way. I don't need that anymore. All right. So that is my baby goat. By the way, subscribe. That's going to be changed. I'm going to have Lucas, wherever the hell I did with him. There he is. Lucas is my buddy. I also have like 11 plushies. But Lucas is my buddy. I've had Lucas for a long time, and I've never had to replace the batteries on him yet because I only turn him on a little bit. But if you can see, he's got the lights for the eyes, and then also he gets activated by sound. Ba 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 ba. And the louder you talk, the faster he goes. And I have a little video on the channel of Lucas running, so that's cool. I am I'm ADHD, as you can tell. I'm autistic. Sometimes, not every single autistic person has. Other people call them obsessions. We call them fun. Trains is a common one, and I do love trains, and I love clocks. The two main other ones would be, three. Amongst our three weapons for the Spanish Inquisition, there's trains, clocks, Rudolph the movie. I've seen it like 150 times, I'm not exaggerating. It came out in 1964, and I've never missed a year. And the other one would probably be books, reading, and Dune. I have all 26 books of Dune. So anyway, we're going to get this started here. So this is going to be the first topic. Dun, 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 dun. Food stamps. There's a lot of crap running around about food stamps. Okay, who's getting them? excuse me, what state gets the most, what state gets the least, how they're paid for, what they, what you can buy with them, et cetera, et cetera. It's the really raggedy part of it started with Ronald Reagan, who's used the term welfare queen, which is a dog whistle for black woman. Okay, and it went on from there, and there's a lot of them that got worse that I will not say on this channel, but that's where the biggest I think that's where the biggest push in public and political discussion began or increased was during Ronald Reagan's terms. So if you'll see here on the screen, I'm going to enlarge this for a minute for me because my eyesight sucks. I am getting cataract surgery in about a week. Yay me! But they've come a long way. The surgeon, pinky on the brain, told me that he can take the one good eye that I have and make that, it's about a 20/28 right now ish, whatever. He can make that 20/20, and he can probably drop the number on the other one. I think it's 20/45 to 20. He's hoping 20/30 at least, but he said probably 20/30 to 20/35. So I'll settle for both of them, absolutely. And if he makes the one 20/20, I've never had either eye in my life have that good of vision. So more power. So let's get on to these food stamp things here. Okay, see these three circles are broken down, as you can see, age, sex, and race. Okay. Race, it's pretty, it's slightly more for female. I'm presuming that a lot of that has to do with the fact that, there's a lot of single mothers. So that's probably, I'm guessing, completely guessing, but that's probably why. You can see in the first circle with the breakdown, the biggest group is the 33%, and that's 17 years or younger. So kids, they're going to try to cut those, and we'll get to that in a little while. But then the second biggest group is let me get the right colors here because I'm slightly colorblind too. I think the second biggest group, is the 30 to 49-year-olds, the green on the bottom. I'm not sure why. The 65 and over, I'm almost 65. The 65 and up are the green on the top. And you got the blue, 50 to 65, and then the other light blue, which is the 18 to 29. Millennials, by the way, are not 18-year-olds. Let me say it again. Millennials are not 18-year-olds. One more time, millennials are not 18-year-olds. You have boomers, myself. You have Generation X, I believe is how this goes. And then you have millennials, okay? Millennials are like 40, okay? So, no. So the boomers can stop with all that. These kids days and these millennials and their avocado toast and whatever. Okay, so let's get to the last part though here, okay? Because that's a big topic among a lot of people, especially people of a certain Caucasian ethnicity. They talk about race. And, that's the stereotype of coffee break. That's a stereotype of food stamp use is black women. It's got to be all those black women are taking up all those food stamps, okay, and all the liberals and and whatever getting all the food stamps. Well, you can see right here that black people in general are 22.7%. That's the third highest of the demographic of getting food stamps. Okay, the next highest is. Get the right one here. Yeah, the next highest is Indigenous or Alaska Native. Okay, and that is almost 30%. And then the highest, 36.1%. that happens to be Caucasian. What a novel concept. So, the stereotype of, oh, it's always those people, marginalized minorities that get all the food stamps. No, they don't. Okay. This is irrespective of state. This is all, everybody all combined. Okay, we're going to get into a little bit more detail there. So let me swap this out. We're going to get Mr. Map. All right. The lightest color is the least amount of people in the state using food stamps. Okay. 4% to 9% is, for example, Indiana, North Dakota, and this is irrespective again of whether the state's a red state or a blue state. You have Indiana, North Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, New Hampshire, all the way up in the corner, Arkansas, etc. And then the two middle ones, and then the highest one, of course, is New Mexico, and that's one state. One state has the highest percentage, 19 to 24%. Okay. And I think this is over a range of time too. I think this is like 2020 to 2022. Alaska and Hawaii are kind of sort of in the middle. I live in Michigan. That is the third highest, 14 to 19%, somewhere in that range. Okay. So let me get my showrunner here because there's a couple of points that I wanted to make. Where are you, you wee bastard? There we go. Okay. So, when you talk about food stamps, if you get rid of all the language, for example, with the welfare queen, or whatever, okay, it's close to the same, but more states that went for Trump had higher levels of food stamp usage than states that went for Democrats. That doesn't mean necessarily that they're all, the red states all out surpassed, the blue states, or that, blue states aren't in that group, in that high group too. It's just that, that particular demographic. Okay. The main states that cover in that, let me get right here. Let's see, in several states that voted for Trump and the GOP, Louisiana, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Alabama, it's almost 19%. Okay. The states that voted majorly for Trump, and now, like, enough, supposedly, all went to vote for Trump. Okay, he got the swing states or whatever. So, hold on a second. Why is this not? There we go. He got the swing states or whatever. So, all of the 5 states that voted majorly for Trump. Okay, so not only did they go for Trump, but they voted strong for Trump. Louisiana, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Nevada, Pennsylvania. Okay. And so all the people in those states that use food stamps, it's about 6.5 million people. Okay, it's 5 states. So you're figuring 5 1/4, a little less, maybe 5 1/5, whatever, million, or 5 1/5, 1 1/5 million people per state. Okay. The lowest states are Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Minnesota, Indiana, New Jersey, New Hampshire. So that's kind of a mix. It isn't all Republican or all Democrat. The problem with this is that the food stamp keeps people alive. It's just flat out. And I'm going to go into greater detail on that because the next issue that's coming up is a legal one, and I'm going to go into greater detail on that. But the GOP is trying to cut people off of food stamps, cut kids. Not just, it's everybody's working and they're just on food stamps. Or they're homeless or whatever. Okay, a lot of homeless, coffee burp. A lot of homeless people work. They just can't afford a home. apartment, whatever. Um, and it used to be the quote unquote American dream, if you're white, that you could own a home, and you could, especially the typical nuclear family that the GOP loves to want to, rhapsodize over. You had the man working, the woman stayed at home with the kids and raised the kids, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. That might have been the case up until I would say probably the early 70s, mid 70s maybe, okay? Unions were still strong, etc. When Reagan came in and broke the Air Traffic Controllers Union, that's when it all went to shit. Okay, because then, unions just really didn't have the power that they had anymore. And, you may say what you want, and sometimes rightfully so, about corruption in this union or that union official or whatever, but in general, they've made a huge difference in this country, in the working people for this country. You get weekends off because of unions. Otherwise, you work every day. You get 8 hours a day. That's the standard. Some jobs will pay you, and that's the premier jobs, will pay you overtime if you get over 8 hours a day, regardless. Electrician jobs, and like my dad was an electrician for decades, and in the union. But in general, unions also gave us holidays off. Before that, holidays, what are you talking about? You've been working the last 30 days in a row, good. You're going to work the next 30 days in a row. Better wages. Workman's comp, if you get hurt at work. Safety and OSHA, which, the GOP is trying to cut to the bone. All kinds of stuff, that the unions have gotten us. Vacations. Whoever heard of a vacation in 1872? Okay? Unless you're, a millionaire, of course. So, unions gave us all this stuff, and, it gets a little annoying to me, a lot annoying, but a little annoying to me, when people who should know better talk about how unions are bad, There are corporations where when you get hired, it is illegal to have any sort of introductory material in the integration of your new job, whatever it is. It is illegal to flat out say that you can't form a union there. Okay. However, a lot of them go, well, this is why we like non-unions, and this is working here as a family, and okay, whatever. Yeah, working here as a family until my family gets hurt. You can throw all the pizza parties you want. That ain't going to make a damn bit of difference. All right. So having said that, I like I said, I wanted to kind of skim briefly into that one. Oh, where's my thing next to the thing by the thing? Okay, so we're going to kick off this map, and we're going to bring back. I had to put this on here. I didn't want to, but I had to put this on here because I felt it was only fair that I show what the quote-unquote other side, and I'm not a Democrat, but the other side likes to say about things. Okay, so I'm going to wait for the thing. Okay, so I can't do a Donald Trump imitation, and if I could, I wouldn't want to anyway, because it'd probably make me ill. So Republicans must unite, of course, all the capital letters and whatever, must unite behind the one big, beautiful bill. Not only does it cut taxes for all Americans, we're going to get into that, but it will kick millions of illegal aliens off of Medicaid. No, it won't. To protect it for those who are the real ones in need, except you're cutting other people who aren't quote-unquote illegal aliens off of Medicaid. Kids off of Medicaid. I remember, was it Janine Pirro, I believe, who was going on and on and on about these kids getting Social Security. And I don't know why these 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds getting Social Security. It's because their parent died. And that's a Social Security death benefit, you ignorant. Anyway, there's probably going to be some more swearing later. So the country will suffer greatly without this legislation. No, it won't. with their taxes going up 65%. Let's just pull numbers out of our ass, okay? 65%, 95%, 112%, whatever. It doesn't make any difference because whatever he says is a bunch of garbage anyway. I know that. You know that. It will be blamed on the Democrats, but that doesn't help our voters. No, it won't. You try to blame everything on the Democrats. They're still blaming the economy sucking right now on Biden. Trump's been in office for 4 months. When he said, I'm going to fix everything on day one. On day one, prices are going to drop. Okay. They not only didn't, but they've gone up. Seen the price of eggs lately? It's always been, look at the price of eggs, look at the price of eggs. The last time I was in the store, I usually go to Big Blue Box Mart because I used to work there and it's the cheapest place in town. And the last time I was at the store, it was $2.75 for 6 eggs. And it was $4.86 or something like that. So it's a little cheaper, okay, to buy a dozen eggs. And there's other places around the country where, it was even higher. Here's the thing. Those prices skyrocketed before the tariffs. The companies cannot claim, oh my God, look at the tariffs, this is what's happening, and so let's say Trumpy Dumpty did decide to get rid of the tariffs for whatever reason, say, countries that, give us food, sell us food and stuff, a lot of them do. We import a lot of food. It is the companies have raised the prices before the tariffs, and so what's going to happen is if you get the tariff, the prices are going to be higher, okay? And then if that tariff is removed, the prices will go down, and they'll be like, oh look, see, he made the prices go down. There was I follow a lot of political channels on YouTube, and Tom Powell is one of them I follow. You should go check him out. I don't agree with him on everything. He's a capitalist. But social issues, 100% pretty much. And a lot of other issues as well. But he watched this little thing about this guy who was talking about how, look, Trump, there's a bump in the stock market after Trump did this, okay? After Trump decided to, to lower the tariffs. Yes, here's what happened. Here's the stock market with Biden. Trump got in and it started to kind of come down a little bit. He announced the tariffs and it nosedived. Okay, sunk faster than that OceanGate little tin hat sub. Okay, he said, oh wait, oh my God, it's screwing the economy over, and I'm sure he doesn't give a shit, but his corporate masters do, and so he said he's going to pause the tariffs. Okay, and so that bump went back up, but that bump that went back up, that high rise that guy was talking about, like, ooh, look, Trump did this, is still lower than what it was before Trump took office. And it's going to go back down again because China's already raised the tariffs on us, regardless of what Trump does. Okay? So, and let me explain the tariffs to you because I've seen many people do this over and over. I've seen many people give explanations, and that's cool. Okay? I'm going to give my short version. Short for me, because I'm Irish. I don't do long story short very well. But I'm going to give my short version because a lot of people still seem to think that the tariffs are going to be paid by the companies. Okay? So, here's what happens. T-shirts come into the United States. They land in a port. Doesn't matter where the port is. Miami, or Portland, wherever. Okay? San Diego, wherever. Okay? And so you got this big shipment of T-shirts come in. Okay? Now the T-shirts normally cost the person here selling them $10. Well, the tariff goes up $3 on that. Okay? So now that person who's buying the T-shirts has to pay $13 instead of $10 for the shirt. Okay? Do you think they're going to keep the price at $10? Yeah, that's a no. Okay. What's going to happen is they're going to raise that at least 13, if not higher, because then they can, they raised it without giving you the amount, so we had to raise it even higher. You pay the tariffs. And then you have people like Jeff Bezos, who I can't stand, but anyway, and his company, Amazon, announced that they were going to show American people the tariffs. So, like, you buy a coffee pot on Amazon, and let's say your total cost before the tariff was $29.99. Okay. Well, if it's got 100% tariff on it, guess what? You're now paying $59.98. Wow, I did that. Anyway, so you're paying $60 instead of $30 because it's 100% tariff. Okay. Or pretty close to that. There's taxes and whatever involved. And so, we're going to put the tariffs on so that we can show the American people that we're not responsible for it. And he got a phone call from Trumpty Dumpty. I don't know if he called Trump or initially, or Trump asked him to call him or whatever. I don't really care. Doesn't matter. They had a conversation. And after that, Amazon backed down like they did before about the free speech issue and the cartoonist. You don't know what that is? Look it up. I'm not going to go into it today, okay? But it's an important issue, not just because of the general idea of free speech, but a specific person and specific event. So look it up. And, he backed right off, okay? So these tariffs are paid by you, all right? We're going to get into, let me see, we'll take that one down. Oh, whoop. Because I'm a professional. Okay. Here we go. Now, so we're going to go on to the big beautiful bill. I think they call it like one big beautiful bill or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. I'm surprised. I told a friend I'm surprised that they didn't put Trump's big beautiful bill as the name of it. I'm really surprised that they didn't. The big beautiful bill would eliminate health insurance for 13.7 million Americans. We're going to get into all these. Okay. Take food away from 4 million children. End Pell Grants for 1.4 million students. Cut Medicare and Medicaid by over $1 trillion because you got to pay for those tax cuts. And give the top 1% a $664 billion tax break. Now, whether that is all from previously, because I think those tax cuts were passed in 2017, okay, or maybe a little bit more was added on or whatever, I don't know at the moment, and I don't care. The point is it's $664 billion, which he could have stopped this year, because it's supposed to end this year. It's supposed to run out. But, of course, he can't do that, so he makes the obscenely wealthy people even more obscenely wealthy. And so, when you have, I'm trying to remember, 1 billion seconds was like 23 days or something like that. Excuse me, 1 million. And then 1 billion seconds was like 11,000 years or something. Somebody can do the math, or you can just look it up on Google, whatever. I don't care. But it's just an inordinate number. It was like 30,000 years or something like that for $1 trillion. Okay. Imagine that's $1 a day. That's how much, and that's 1 trillion, okay, plus all the other stuff. Yeah. Like they say, that's oligarchy. Okay, we're gonna Fritos go with lunch. Okay. I thought this one I'm going to leave up while I finish the rest of the show. Okay. It's my attitude for today. It says orgasms are one of the healthiest forms of stress relief, so when I tell you to go fuck yourself, it's because I care. All right. Now, let me find my showrunner because we're going to... Okay, so... The 2017 tax cuts. Now, so that $1 trillion is in addition to what was before, okay? So they are extending the tax cuts by $3.8 trillion, all right? Now, there's a lot of claims about no taxes on overtime, okay? So, but there are some limitations, what is the word I'm looking for? Restrictions may apply, okay? It's not everybody, first of all, okay? You have to earn a certain amount, okay? And then you don't get no taxes on overtime. Okay, first of all, you pay it throughout the year. So if you work 5 hours overtime, you pay overtime on those taxes. What happens is at the end of the year, for some of that money, you get a tax credit. That's what it is. No, there's not any no taxes on overtime. Okay, and that lasts only from 2026 to 2028, which is the rest of Trump's term. Okay, so if this was so great for the American people, why didn't he just make it permanent? Why didn't he, or 10 years? Okay, like we did with or 8 years, excuse me, like he did with the 2017 tax cuts. Why not do that then? Oh no, and I'll tell you why not do that then. Because damn sure likely, assuming it happens, the Republicans don't have a chance in hell of winning the next election. They just don't. Whether or not that election happens, and I think it will, I'm hoping it will, but they just don't have a chance in hell. Now, and that's not saying that everybody's going to lose, like Marjorie Taylor Greene's not going to lose. I hope Lauren Bobblehead loses, but she might not lose. There is somebody good running against her, so she might lose. If Mitch McConnell had been running, he wouldn't lose, etc. There's quite a few people that aren't going to lose, okay? And the same for Democrats, to be fair, okay? But when that 2028 election comes, first of all, I think in 2026, I don't think it's going to be a surprise, and it's not going to be a landslide. It's not going to be like, suddenly, because there's 435 seats in the House, and it's not going to be suddenly like there's 400 Democrats and 35 Republicans. That's not going to happen, okay? May only be a switch of 5 or 10, okay? But that's going to make a difference. As far as the Senate, I don't think the Democrats are going to take it back. It could happen. There's some people retiring, and whatever, so I don't think it's going to happen. But it might. It would be nice if it did, but it might. Hold on a second. So when 2026 happens and then 2028 happens, I remember a quote. I don't remember who made it. I remember a quote a few years ago that said, if the Republicans don't win in 2024, the first chance they'll have to win anything will be 2030. Well, obviously they won in 2024, supposedly. So, and they kept control of the House, etc., and had control of the Senate. So that's their last chance because, now granted there's going to be quite a few people in the American public that are going to forget. They're going to say, oh, well, look, the economy sucks and this and that and whatever, and how come you Democrats can't fix it? And then the Republicans are going to go, well, we can fix it, and they're going to believe it. Hopefully not as many as this last time. Because I'm sorry, but some of you are just flat out dipshits. I don't believe in any way, shape, or form in a poll tax or a test to, get in voting rights, okay? If there were some way, and there's not, if there was some way to have a completely fair test for voting rights, maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. But there's no way that's going to happen, not in the real world, okay? There's always biases. I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, right, left, whatever. Everybody, myself included, everybody has a bias, okay? Mine is a left bias, definitely. You've probably been told that by now. Where was I? Shit. I had a thought. I figured I'd use it for it. Died in loneliness. Okay, so maybe I'll remember it. Okay. But I was talking about I was talking about the elections. Okay. And the fact that the Republicans are just going to be slaughtered. Now, again, it's not going to be a landslide. It's not going to be... I remember when Reagan went against Mondale and won 49 states to 1. And the only one that was Mondale's home state. Now, Trumpty Dumpty claims that he had the best election in U.S. history and a landslide and blah, 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 except he didn't get as many states as Reagan did. So, no, he didn't. Just flat out. Another lie, but The just like the last rain, it's a fire hose of lies. Fire hose, excuse me, of lies that is jetted against the American public, and it's a term. If you do this in debating, it's called gishgala. Okay, where I'm debating you for whatever the topic is, and I have 3 minutes. So in that 3 minutes, I throw out 30 points against your stance. Could be all bullshit, but I throw 30 points against your stance. Now, what a lot of people try to do, and there's just no way to do it in that time frame, okay, is to fight against every single one. You just can't do it in the time frame. So what I do is I pick the worst one and go after that. All right, so we're going to break down some numbers here, and then I'm going to get through a little bit of stuff. What time is it? Because really? Go away. Go away, go away. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so I'm just going to hit the highlights of this, okay? So, like I said, extending the tax cuts or whatever, it would increase the child tax credit to $2,500 until 2028. See that trend there? Okay? It would allow a higher standard deduction if you're married until 2028. Like I said, the no tax on overtime claim is BS. Okay. You still get taxed throughout the year. Every single hour of overtime that you make, you get taxed. But then what happens is, at the end of the year, on some of it, you can get a tax. I hate my mouse. I hate my mouse. I hate my mouse. You can get a tax credit. Okay. And again, that's not every person either. Okay. Married couples, the House plan, Freudian slip. The House plan would lift the cap to $40,000. Married couples only. Of course, obviously a single person wouldn't have that high. With incomes up to $500,000. But if you're poor or single, too bad. So sad. Sucks to be you. This big beautiful bill proposes changes to Medicaid. Okay. Beginning at the end of 2026, childless adults without disabilities, and this is where the state has to consider you disabled. Okay. Legally disabled. Okay. If you are not legally disabled and you don't have a child, you have to work at least 80 hours a month to qualify for benefits. Okay, 20 hours a week. Yeah. Some people, one person that I know in particular, is able to work some, but can't work that much. They're clearly disabled. Okay. When they went for one of their attempts in front of a judge to apply for disability in a fucking wheelchair, judge said, "No, you're not disabled." What? Why is the judge determining, first of all, whether or not they're disabled? At least there would be some sham of respectability if he had a doctor that was working for the state or whatever and said, "Oh, no, that person's not disabled." No, it's the judge that does it? Really? Yeah. But I've also been told more than once by almost every single disabled person, I'm disabled, but not legally, almost every single disabled person I've ever met, that the first time you apply for disability, you're just automatically denied. To tell you how bad it is, my nephew passed away from Duchenne's muscular dystrophy a few years ago. Sorry. So he passed away a few years ago. Okay. But I was staying with my sister 4 or 5 years prior to that. Okay. Because I just moved up here, didn't have a house yet, but I had a job, whatever. So I stayed with her for like 3 or 4 months, whatever it was. Okay. So I used to go in there and help feed him because at that point he had to be fed. Okay. He could move his head, had control of the movements of his head, talk, whatever. Okay. He had a trach, all right, and the machine that breathed for him. And he could move his right hand where he could use a mouse, and that was it. That's all he had control over. And she got a letter from the Social Security office, Social Security Disability, SSDI, excuse me, coffee burp, stating that that he was no longer disabled. Just by fiat, just, what's up, geek? Just because they said so, he was no longer disabled. At this point, they had to use a Hoyer lift, which is basically kind of like a sling, okay, to give him a bath, to put him in his chair, whatever, okay. Okay, he's a big dude. And so, but he's not disabled. And so, and I'm going to get to the exact form of the letter in a second, but they said he's not disabled. And they said that in the future, if he became disabled, and then became not disabled again, he would be cut off from benefits again. Okay. Now here's the thing. In the letter, let me just say this is the letter here, okay, they had a line across the top with his name handwritten in it. It was literally a form letter, so they sent it out to many people. Okay, don't tell me they didn't. And somebody just wrote his name in it. You got a list and wrote his name in it. Okay, you're no longer disabled. What? And and I should have. I think I maybe next week. Put it down in the comments. If you want that particular show or whatever type of show. Maybe next week I'll just do it all on disability. The various types, what you have to go through, and I'm going to cast around and see if I can find somebody to interview. I would like to find maybe 2 people, and they can be, talked at the same time, if they're comfortable on camera, obviously. But I'd like to find someone who has applied for disability, but it hasn't gotten it yet, and then someone who has applied for disability, has gotten it, and the rigmarole that they have to go through, because it doesn't stop once it's not like magically, puppies and rainbows, once you get declared disabled, okay, you're limited for income, you're all kinds of stuff, okay, can't get married, etc. I could go into all of that, okay. So, and the last thing we're going to go into, before I go into a little bit of a personal one, is SNAP. Okay, like I said, they're going to cut EBT. I remember a video from this, the FAFO videos, FAFO, and there was a woman who was in the original video that she had made before Trump was elected, was doing a dance, okay, doing a little Trump dance. God, I hate even doing that, but doing a little Trump dance, okay. Wearing a Trump t-shirt, said Trump is daddy now, and whatever, and then in her bathroom, and then she also did one where, like, in the corner of where the wall and the shower curtain, okay, like she was dancing on a pole, and this is what I'm going to have to do if Trump doesn't win, okay. Okay, cool. So you voted for Trump. And then she made a video where she lost her shit because they cut off her EBT, they cut off her disability, they cut off her rental assistance and stuff. Everything gone. I don't feel sorry for you a bit. She's got a kid, at least one that I know of, because of her other statements that she's made. I don't know how many. Could be just the one, okay? And I feel sorry for the kids. I don't feel sorry for her a bit. Not a bit. And there's one young woman, I can't remember her name. She's on TikTok. I love her channel. Young black woman, who said, you better get ready to do some strange for some change. And I'm not knocking sex workers. I was one for quite a while. But you're gonna pretend that you're a stripper, pole dancer, if Trump loses, and then when it turns around that Trump wins, this is something you're gonna have to do, maybe to to feed yourself and your kids, your family, whatever. Okay. Oh well, sucks to be you. I mean, and here's the thing: there's a lot of people who might be in that situation who didn't vote for Trump, and they're still fucked up too. So it's not like all these negative consequences came down on just the Trump voters. But they hit everybody in those income brackets and whatever, and that has nothing to do with who you vote for. Okay, so they're wanting to cut Medicaid. Where is it here? What they're wanting to do is raise the age. If you making a work requirement for Medicaid. So if you are under 64 or younger, okay, and you are not disabled, unless you work, I'm assuming it's probably the same 80 hours. Unless you work 80 hours a month, you're not on Medicaid. So let's say you work 70 hours a month. You know, it's pretty close. You're trying. Okay. But it's 70 hours a month, regardless of, unless the wages are like $60 an hour. That's 70 hours a month. How are you going to afford health insurance? Geek says, I know many people that are on SSI or SSDI and still struggling. I know many that aren't on it either and struggling. Yeah. They're just in general. Okay. The last thing I want to cover in the BBB, and I'll go quickly over it. Okay, so there is a website. There's a lawsuit. I don't know what got website in the hit. There's a lawsuit right now. It's called Sweet versus McMahon. Okay, and McMahon is the Secretary of Education, the wife of Vince McMahon of WWE fame, because we're living in idiocracy. But anyway, she's a Secretary of Education. Okay, and this isn't specifically set against her because it started when Betsy DeVos did her little famous run into that. You remember when people were making fun of Dan Quayle because he couldn't spell potato? Ugh. I almost would say bring that guy back. Okay? But anyway, so there's this lawsuit. And there's a bunch of institutions. I don't know if Phoenix was one of them. So I'm not saying flat out that they are. Just that name is stuck in my head. Okay, but that type of online university. Okay, Phoenix or this or that or whatever, ITT Tech, whatever. Okay. Got a class action lawsuit, and they've had a settlement that they're working on. There are 3 schools that are still trying to fight against the settlement. Okay. And they pretty much have no chance in hell. But what it is the loans and grants, whatever you got through the school, okay, are paid back. So if it's a loan, you don't get money, but they pay off that loan. That loan that you made, gone. You owe nothing, not one penny. Okay, and it's not every single person, and your income also makes a difference. But for most people, you owe nothing, zero, zilch, nada, nit. Okay. As an example, I was in ITT Tech for almost 2 years. Okay. And then when I moved, I was living in Indianapolis at the time. I moved to Minnesota, and I stopped ITT Tech so that I could go to the regular local college, SMSU, Southwestern Michigan. Narf! Pinky on the brain. Southwest Minnesota State University. Oh, God, what is their mascot? I think it's the Bronco. I'm not sure. Anyway, shout out to them. Okay, I love their college. They have awesome instructors. Okay, but so anyway, I was going to IT&T. Here's the difference. When I went to SMSU, okay, or any regular junior college, graduate degree, whatever, makes no difference. Okay, when I went to SMSU, you get X amount for loans, and you can get X amount for grants. Okay, and maybe you get scholarships or whatever. Okay, that's what you get. Obviously you can, like your parents could, bring money into it, or if you're working, that would help too, or whatever. But from the government, that's what you get. Okay. Most college students that don't get everything paid by their parents, family, etc. Okay, will take you get X amount of money. Like I said, you add it all together. Okay, so now that's enough, barely, but it's enough to pay your tuition, your books. Cost of books is ridiculous in a college situation. Okay, college setting, and you have some money left over. which you can use to pay bills or whatever. Okay, some students live on it. Okay, they live cheaply. They might rent a couch or, have a roommate situation. I live in a college town, and there's a lot of houses around here that are split up into 6 or 7 bedrooms. And then they all share the utilities and whatever. Okay. So that college, most colleges, unless the tuition and the books and everything are higher than what you get for the amount, you get whatever's left over. Okay. I went to ITT Tech online. It's online. Okay. So obviously I'm not living on campus, etc. Okay. And all my materials are PDFs. Okay. They took everything. Every single penny. Okay. And I didn't know, I'm ignorant, person as far as, going to college or whatever, didn't know. So when I went to the regular college and found out that's not the way that it normally is, I was like, what the hell? So I went on. I had over 3 years of a bachelor's in English, which is why I worked at Walmart. That's an old joke of mine. I write and sell books online. But I had a meltdown, and that ended my college career at that time. Okay. But anyway, getting back to the point. Okay, so ITT Tech took everything. Okay, so they're not the only ones that did this. I think Phoenix Online, and I could be wrong. Okay, so I'm just guessing. I don't know, but they may have done it. 153 schools did this, so it wasn't just 1 or 2. Okay, so all that it says earlier this month, the federal judge tentatively approved a $6 billion settlement between the U.S. Department of Education and hundreds of thousands of student borrowers who say they were misled by their colleges. And it has a list. And I'll put all this information in the links. I'm not going to, do all that. But it has a list of all the schools. Okay. Guess what? Ding, 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 ding. ITT Tech is on there. So assuming that I qualify for it, the student loan that I have left, because I paid on it for years, the student loan that I have left is gone. Okay. And I think I qualify for it. I'll find out. Okay, once the settlement is all completely forward and whatever. Okay, it says the deal would automatically grant debt relief to around 200,000 people. The borrower defense rule allows students to receive debt relief if their institutions misled them. And that's what they did. Just flat out, that's what they did. Okay, the last part of the show, and it's not going to be too long. ¿Qué hora es? Hold on. Let me see the time here. Oh, okay. So, I'll talk for a little while. So this is an AMA. I think there's only 2 people in the chat right now, and that's fine. Whatever. So this is an AMA about being trans. I just thought, what the hell? So, I don't... obviously, there's some questions I will not answer online in regards to specific medication dosages or some certain things. Not very many, because I'm pretty open about me being a former sex worker, hooker. I don't know if YouTube considers this to be a bad word, so WHORE, whatever. Okay, got paid for it. Got paid for fellatio, got paid for everything else. Helped pay the bills. And I like actually doing some of it. So, anyway. And I know there's a delay here, which drives me up a freaking wall. So, if anybody has a question about being trans, and while that's going on, the delay and whatever, I knew I was trans from the time I was like 5 years old. But I hid it successfully. I was married twice, have 2 kids. Excuse me. Until I was 55, and I just couldn't hide it anymore. All right. I was, I'm a multiple, how would I phrase it? A multiple terminal self-harm survivor. Okay. There's never going to be any med shaming or mental disability shaming on this channel in any way, shape, or form. Okay. But anyway, so many of the time, that I almost didn't make it through here. Okay. because I didn't see how I could, correction isn't the only thing, but I didn't see how I could fix my outer to my inner, okay, to my body, etc., to my inner being. Now, not everybody is a trans woman. That's another thing that gets me, okay. Not everybody's trans woman, okay. You know, might be not, you know, that might be the only thing in your porn stash, conservatives, but not everybody's a trans woman. There's trans men, there's, you know, trans non-binary, there's quite a range, okay. Trans, I like to say trans femmes and trans masks, because there are trans men, okay, who were assigned female at birth, okay, and have transitioned, okay. That level of transition is up to them. There's no shame into that here either, okay. But anyway, so I started, you know, I came out to myself in 2015. I couldn't do it anymore. And I came out at work in 2016. I started slowly, you know, adding makeup and, you know, nail polish and whatever, okay, to my work appearance. And I got, you know, a few, I actually don't think nothing to my face. I didn't get any Snickers or anything to my face, okay? I know there's a couple people, one in particular, who's a very religious, staunch religious fundamentalist, okay? Obviously didn't like it. But all of my friends there, and I have a lot of friends there, and a lot of friends that still work there. All of my friends there supported me 100%. And after I had been like completely fully out and open, I hadn't even been on HRT yet, but I'd started, you know, I was fully wearing makeup every day, nail polish, whatever, okay, and using the women's bathroom. I got a call into the office. So I go in the office, and there's the coach and the two team leads. Now, anytime, probably in most jobs, but when you, especially in Walmart, when you get called to come into the office and there's more than one management member, more than one member of management, something going down, okay? Now, the particular one, I was working third shift, and this particular boss and I got along absolutely great, okay? I busted my ass every night, and he appreciated that. Left me alone. Here's your work, this is what you got to do. Okay, and I would do it. At 58, 60 years old. And he saw my expression, and again, he knows me. I've worked with him for 5 years at this point, okay? And he said, before you sit down, you're not in trouble. I was like, okay. He said, someone came to me and told me that you're using the women's bathroom. He said, now, first of all, I want to tell you that they weren't tattletaling. Okay, and I know who this person was. All right, I found out later. I had a pretty good idea, and then I found out later because they came up to me and talked to me about it. He said, this person came up to me and told me about it, not for tattletaling, but so that in case I had any problems from there, that he could deal with them. And he said, if you had been just starting out with your transition, and he had no problem using the word, novel concept, if you just started out with your transition, he said, I might have asked you if you could possibly use the family bathroom. Okay. And, you know, can't always, because, you know, a lot of times people use that for other reasons too, you know, just because it's, you know, it's private, it's only one person, whatever. He said, but you've been in your transition for at least 1.5 years, 2 years now, or whatever, so if you have any problems, come to me and I'll back you up. Which meant a hell of a lot to me, okay? It floored me. I mean, it didn't floor me that he would think that way. It floored me that he was able to do that. This is way before they dropped the DEI, of course. But he was able to do that and was wanting to do that prior to that, okay? I started HRT 2 years after I came out initially, okay? So I was doing the whole, a lot of people recommend you do a whole year's experience and whatever. But I started at almost 2 years, okay? And that was just because of timing and insurance, because I was like, okay, so, you know, now I'm completely out and open. What do I do about medications and whatever? HRT, which I'll get into that. And somebody I saw on a post one day. There's a what do you call it? Group on Facebook that I belong to that is for current and former workers at Walmart. Okay, and somebody mentioned it on Facebook. I'm like, what? So I went and checked it out. Now I couldn't change my insurance at the time, but what that said was that Walmart would, from that point forward, when you got in, enrolled in the insurance or whatever, pay for HRT, hormone replacement therapy, medications, gender affirming care, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And it wasn't 100%, but the copay was really low because there's a lot of medications that Walmart has where, and not even just this or like there's maybe blood pressure medication or whatever, as long as it's not anything outwardly unique or whatever, $4 a month. That's what they charge you. Okay. So the insurance was pretty good. Okay, and it covered it, which I was surprised, and I'm glad it did. Okay, I had that insurance all the way through my work at Walmart. I retired December 29th, 2022. I got on Medicaid because I was still on Cobra. I could have been on Cobra for a year, but I got on Medicaid. It was like, I don't know, 6 months later, whatever, something like that. Excuse me. And here in Michigan, because obviously it's not the same, looking at you, Texas and Florida, but here in Michigan, Medicaid pays for HRT. Okay. You have to have, you got to get your letter from mommy. That's what I call it. Okay. You got to get a letter from the therapist. You go to a doctor. The doctor then, they do blood work and whatever else. We discuss, the pros and cons of it with you. And then you get on it. I've been on it for, tomorrow will be my 7th anniversary of being on hormones. Just some changes. I got a full B cup. There's been a lot of changes in the fat distribution in my face. I've shrunk an inch. It does, especially if you're younger. I'm going to be 65 here in a few months, but especially if you're younger, there's more of a change physically than if you were older like me. Okay. I've gone down a shoe size, which surprised the hell out of me. Shouldn't have in retrospect, but it did at the time. I have, without getting too TMI, I have no body hair from the neck down at all. I'm shaving my legs in almost 5 years. I have nothing, no underarm hair. Okay. Unfortunately, it doesn't do the same thing for the facial hair. I wish it did. I'm going to be getting electrolysis for that. But it makes my skin softer. I'm fatter. Yeah, I am. Okay, I'm chunky, as some people would say. I say that I have a lot of natural insulation. Okay. Obviously, my clothes changed. The shape of my clothes changed. I was out and open, like I said, at work, at Walmart. Two things I want to say, and I'm getting ready to close up here. Okay. Two things I want to say about working out at Walmart at the time. Okay, this is 4 or 5 years ago that this particular thing happened. I was working produce, and I was doing what we call the wet wall. That's where it's the lettuce and all this stuff that can go bad real quick. Okay, so we have to check it. We're supposed to anyway. Check it to see if there's any mold or whatever. Just as a clue, if you see what looks like white powder or white dust on an orange or a lemon, that's mold. Anyway, so and I got a huge cart, and I'm 6'1", and I got a huge cart which is taller than me, and I'm working on this, and I went by a different name then, and I hear my name, and I look around, whatever. So I go back to grab a bag, and I hear my name again, and I turn around, and this man is standing, and he starts talking to me, and he tells me that his son is trans. Okay, so he has a trans son. And the way he said that, I knew what he meant. Okay, not a trans femme, a trans man. Okay, well, kid. But he supports his kid 100%. And he said that his kid was too nervous / shy to come up and tell me themselves. So they wanted their dad to tell me that they appreciated the fact that I wasn't making a big deal out of it. I was just, I'm there to work, okay? And if y'all don't like who I am, I don't care. I'm there to work. I'm not here for you to like me, okay? In that manner, which I felt pretty good about. And the other is that when I went to quit, okay, I gave them a 30-day, 2-week notice. I was, it was no rush, and I'm like, you know what, I'll give them, 30 days. What the hell, the 4 weeks, okay, of December. It was December 22. So I went up to my boss. Her name is Beth. I call her Stretch because she's almost as tall as I am. Good boss for, Walmart, but good boss nonetheless. Good person, I think. And I said, I got something that you're not going to like, Beth. And she goes, what's that? I said, I'm quitting. She's like, what? I said, I'm quitting. I'm retiring, and I'm done. She gets this real sad look on her face. She's like, no, I don't want you to go. At this time, I was working maintenance, and I bring that up for a different reason. But anyway, so I gave them a 30-day, 2-week notice. We'll get back to that. But as far as the maintenance goes, now, I'm sure some of the women knew I was trans. Okay, some didn't. But when I'm working in as maintenance, one of the things that we have to do is clean the bathrooms. Okay, so I made a deal with the guys. I will clean both women's bathrooms, front and back, and the family bathroom. They clean the men's bathrooms. Cool. That was fine with them. That way, I don't have to wait to go in there. They don't have to, start doing paper towels or whatever. And they don't have to wait for the guys. Okay? And in the entire, almost a year that I worked maintenance, cleaning the bathrooms at least every 2 hours, okay, not once did I ever have a woman pull a Karen on me and make a complaint. Either to my face, to a boss, whatever, nothing. My standard response, I would be, maybe mopping or, doing whatever. And they would stick their head in past my cart and say, can I use the bathroom? And I'd say, sure, I'm just, I'm just cleaning. Okay, now if they had ever asked me to step outside, I wouldn't have liked it, but I would have done it. Okay, nobody ever did. You're there to pee. Okay, that's it. And so I felt, pretty good about that too. Kind of validating. And the last thing, a cute little story. So about a year ago, my doctor that I had at the time, Dr. K, I won't say her full name, but down in Grand Rapids, I live in Michigan, down in Grand Rapids, one of the best doctors I've ever come in contact with. And not just for queer people, okay? She's very queer positive. But, she's a general practitioner, okay? Now, I've been with her at this point for almost 6 years, all right? And she had her, like 2 or 3 staff nurses, but one of my favorites was Katie, okay? And Katie was on vacation out in west, out Montana or some godforsaken place, okay, I don't know. So they had a new nurse. And so the nurse introduced herself, whatever her name was, I don't remember, it's been too long ago. But she said, I'm here, Katie's on vacation. Okay, So she's asking me all these questions, have you quit smoking or are you smoking? I said, no, I quit almost 20 years ago. Halloween, it'll be 21 years. Samhain, it'll be 21 years that I quit smoking. Do you use any street medications? Which I knew what she meant, pot or whatever. And I said, no, I don't do any of that. And we're talking about, and I have, medications for arthritis, pain, and whatever. She's going on a list, and she's looking down, and she goes, are you pregnant? And I went, no. Just like that. And she said, okay, and just kept on going, okay. So, get in, to the meeting with the doctor, and I said, before we get started here, I want to tell you this, okay, and I told her that whole story, and she kind of laughed a little bit. She said, that must feel good. And I said, yeah. I didn't tell her what I usually tell my friends or whatever, because I didn't want to shock her, I didn't want to I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable, because of the topic, or the way I put it out, I should say. Not that I haven't put out before. But anyway, she said, the topic, I said, well, I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable, saying what I would have said to my friends. She said, why? What would you say to me, your friends? I said, well, I can't get pregnant. I swallow too much. I thought she was going to fall off her chair. She was laughing so hard. This is a relationship I had. I love this doctor to death. If I could, I would, give a shout out to her, Dr. K, which is not her last name, by the way, either. That's her first initial. But I call her Dr. K. I call her Dr. K when we're on television or whatever. Okay, it's a doctor-patient relationship. We're not friends, although we probably could be outside. But we're not friends. Okay, we're doctor-patient. But and then the doctor that I have now, even though he's a man, sorry guys, just as good, just as understanding, just as compassionate, just as concerned about my welfare. And she's the one who recommended him. I was a little because I don't do change well. Okay, there's change in my head, obviously, but as far as change in my environment, whatever, I don't do change very well. But she was. Hold on a second. Yeah. Okay, let me switch back here because we're just about done. Okay. She was a phenomenal doctor, and if I were ever to be there down in that area again where I could pick a doctor up, I would immediately call her. And she's messaged me on our medical system, Corwell Health, on occasion, just to see how I'm doing. That's how good a doctor she is. So the change, so to speak, like I told a friend yesterday, not all trans women, okay, but trans women, I'm one of them, can have periods. Obviously, I can't bleed. I don't have a uterus. But the cramps, the mood changes, or whatever, yep. And so the last 2-3 days, I was like, oh, I got to go through this shit again. But it is what it is. And I even, under the right circumstances, can lactate. But genetically, biologically, okay, if you want to use that word, biological, okay, quote unquote men can too. They have the exact same equipment. It's different, slightly, okay, in size and shape and whatever, okay, but the function is still there. So with the right medication, the right circumstances, physical stimulation, whatever, they can lactate too. And so trans women can lactate, and I do. So anyway, Scooby-Doo. So I'm going to end this here. Diores. What time is it? The hora is 5:19. Okay, yeah. I was going to do a movie tonight, but I'm going to do it tomorrow night. Okay. I'm hoping that they'll do SJA tomorrow. I don't remember the links, Geek, so if you want to throw them in the channel, go right ahead. I'll talk long enough for you to get them popped up, okay? SJA stands for Social Justice Alchemy. I love the show, okay? It's usually myself, Geek, John, sometimes Indigenous is on there. I can't remember if their name is Ellie? Because they don't talk that much, kind of soft-spoken. Mithral, Isaiah, anybody who's watched the show in any fashion for any length of time kind of knows those names, okay? The Sundays. So far you do plan for SJA tomorrow. Okay? Go ahead and put a link up. Is it Ellie or Eli is his name? Okay, go ahead and put a link up if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I figured what the hell, at least for the channel and stuff. They have a Patreon, okay? And so I think Geek said it's once a month they do the Patreon show or whatever. So I don't know if we're going to do a Patreon show tomorrow. But Social Justice Alchemy is what it... Ellie, okay. Social Justice Alchemy is the name of their channel that they do. Again, covering all sorts of topics. We get a panel going and whatever, and we can, if you think I bounce around a lot, holy shit. Geek says, I think it'll be a patron show tomorrow. Okay, so you look it up on YouTube. Okay, Social Justice Alchemy, all one word. Okay, and it's got like this black symbol with letters on it or whatever. I don't know. I've slept since then. But anyway, that'll be the one. Okay, and you can see recordings of the past shows and whatever. You can also check out the Patreon, Social Justice Alchemy. I think they do a good service, especially in the days of the hellscape that we live in currently. So I'm going to close this down here. I want to thank Geek and Indigenous for showing up. I appreciate that. I mean, I can run my mouth regardless, but as you all know. But I like it when people pop in. You know, if you pop into the show later, you can watch the rerun, is what I call it, whatever. You can check all that out and leave a comment in the comment section. I'm likely going to talk about disability next week, but I might not. That's just kind of what I'm aiming towards right now. And there are mental and invisible disabilities too. Okay, it's not all just, you know, you're not disabled if you're not in a wheelchair. It doesn't work like that. All right. So we'll cover all that next week. Like I said, I want to thank them for coming out. I want to thank anybody who watches this. I know I saw a few people popped in and out, whatever, and I also understand, you know, it's Saturday, you might be busy, you're doing stuff with family, or, you know, maybe the show's just not your cup of tea, whatever. That's fine. You know, that's cool. So I got to move this here and move that there, and, you know, as my cousin says, so I'm just a professional, as my cousin says. Hold on a second. Why is this not? There we go. Indigenous says later, hydrate and medicate. Yep. All right. I am the Irish mouthpiece. That's going to be the name of the channel. And my name is Siobhan. I hope y'all have a great weekend. And sometime soon on my Discord, I'm going to hit all 7, not all at once, all 7 movies of